Hi, and welcome. My name is Amy Weber. I am the co founder of Speak, Learn, and Play. I am also a child therapist and parent coach. This month at Speak, Learn, and Play, we are talking all about belonging. And today, specifically, I want to talk about belonging at school and specifically how to advocate for your neurodivergent child without apologizing for the fact that they need support. Because school belonging is not just about placement. It's not just about grades. It's not just about whether a child has an IEP, a 504 plan, a behavior chart, a token system, a sensory break card, which, let's be honest, some adults could also use during staff meetings, traffic, and group texts. Belonging at school is about something much deeper. It is about whether your child feels respected, understood, and included in the life of the classroom. It is about whether they experience school as a place where adults are trying to help them succeed or as a place where they are constantly failing in public. It is about whether support helps them access learning and connection or whether support becomes another way they feel singled out. So today, I want to talk about why academic support and emotional belonging must go together, how exclusion can be subtle, what happens to a child's nervous system when school feels unsafe or they feel misunderstood, and how parents can advocate clearly without feeling like they need to soften, shrink, or apologize for their child's needs. Because your child's needs are not an inconvenience. They are information. And support is not special treatment. Support is access. So let's jump in. Academic support and emotional belonging have to go together. Sometimes school conversations focus heavily on academics, reading level, math facts, writing output, homework completion, test scores. And of course, those things matter. Academic progress matters. Skill development matters. We want children to learn. But children do not learn well when their nervous system is spending the day scanning for threat. They do not learn well when they feel ashamed. They do not learn well when they feel like the problem kid. They do not learn well when every mistake confirms the story, I am bad at school. For neurodivergent kids, emotional belonging is not a nice little bonus after the academics are handled. It is part of the learning environment. A child who feels safe enough to ask for help is more available for learning. A child who trusts the adult in the room is more able to recover after correction. A child who feels included is more willing to try. A child who believes my teacher understands me may have more capacity to tolerate frustration, transitions, feedback, and challenge. Academic support without belonging can become mechanical. Complete the worksheet, use the chart, take the break, earn the points, try harder, do better. But belonging asks a deeper question. Does this child feel like there is a place for them here? Not just a desk, not just a service time, not just a spot on the roster, a place. When we think about exclusion, we often think of obvious things: a child being left out of a game, a child sitting alone at lunch, a child being removed from class, a child not being invited. But exclusion can be much more subtle than that. Sometimes exclusion looks like constant correction. A child hears their name all day long, but mostly as a warning. Liam, sit down. Liam, hands to yourself. Liam, stop talking. Liam, you're not following in directions. Liam, move your clip. Liam, take a break. And eventually, the child's name starts to feel like an alarm bell. Sometimes exclusion looks like missing recess again and again because work was not finished. But for a child with ADHD, dysgraphia, processing speed challenges, anxiety, executive functioning struggles, unfinished work may not mean they were careless or unmotivated. It may mean that the task was not accessible to them in the first place. Taking away recess from a child who needs movement to regulate is like taking away someone's glasses because they could not read the board. It does not solve the problem, and it often makes the problem bigger. Sometimes exclusion looks like public behavior systems, color charts, clip charts, points on the board, names written where everyone can see. These systems may be designed to motivate, but for children who are already struggling with regulation, impulse control, anxiety, rejection sensitivity, they can become public shame displays. And shame is not a regulation strategy. Sometimes exclusion shows up in fun activities that are not actually accessible, a loud assembly, a chaotic field day, a group project with unclear notes, a surprise change in schedule, a class party with noise and sugar and games and zero escape plan, a reward that requires sensory tolerance or social flexibility that the child does not have. From the outside, adults may say, but it's supposed to be fun. And the child may be thinking, my body is on fire. I do not understand what is happening, and everyone expects me to be happy about it. Belonging means we look at the whole school experience, not just whether a child is physically present, not just whether they are technically included, but whether they can participate with dignity. So now I want to shift to the nervous system. When a child feels unsafe, misunderstood, embarrassed, or constantly corrected, their nervous system may start to treat school as a threat environment. That does not mean the school is intentionally harmful. It does not mean that their teachers don't care. It means the child's body is experiencing school as a place where they are not okay. And when the nervous system senses threat, it does what nervous systems do: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, shut down, avoid, argue, run away, refuse, cry, get silly, get rigid, become controlling, say, I don't care, say, I hate school, say, everyone hates me, say, I'm stupid, say, my stomach hurts. All of these responses are often interpreted as behavior problems, but sometimes they are stress responses. A child who feels repeatedly shamed may become defensive. A child who feels trapped may become explosive. A child who feels overwhelmed may shut down. A child who feels unseen may escalate until someone finally sees them, even if what they see is the behavior. And this is one of the most heartbreaking loops for many neurodivergent kids. The child struggles, the adults correct the behavior, the child feels more ashamed or unsafe, the behavior gets bigger, the adults increase the consequences, the child feels even more like school is a place where they fail. And around we go. Now everyone is exhausted. This is why we have to look beneath the behavior, not to excuse it, not to ignore it, but to ask better questions. What is this child experiencing? When do they feel most successful? Where are the demands exceeding their capacity? What happens before the behavior? What helps them recover? Who do they trust? Where do they feel most connected? Because when we understand the nervous system, we stop asking only, how do we make this behavior stop? And we start asking, how do we make success more possible? So, how can we think about accommodations that support belonging and not special treatment? One of the most important advocacy shifts is this: accommodations are not special treatment. They are not shortcuts. They are not unfair advantages. They are not a child getting away with something. Accommodations are tools that help a child access the environment. A visual schedule is not special treatment. That is a support for predictability. Noise canceling headphones are not special treatment. They are support for sensory regulation. A movement break is not special treatment. It is support for attention and nervous system organization. Reduced writing output is not special treatment. It may be support for dysgraphia, fatigue, processing, or executive functioning. Previewing a change in schedule is not special treatment. It is support for emotional regulation and connection. When we frame accommodations as extra, kids may feel embarrassed to use them, and adults may become inconsistent about offering them. But when we frame accommodations as access, everything changes. We can say stuff like, this helps my child participate. This helps my child feel regulated. This helps my child show what they know. This helps my child remain part of the classroom community. The goal is not to make the child dependent. The goal is to reduce unnecessary barriers so the child can build skills with support. A ramp does not make the building unfair. It makes the building accessible. The same is true for many school supports. So how can we partner while advocating clearly? This is a dance. Many parents feel like they have to choose between being nice and being effective. They worry if they ask too directly, they're going to be labeled as difficult. And they worry if they push too hard, the school will be annoyed. And they worry that if they seem emotional, they won't be taken seriously. And let's be honest, some parents have had experiences that make those worries very reasonable and real. But advocating does not have to mean attacking, and partnering does not have to mean minimizing. You can be warm and clear. You can appreciate the teacher and still ask for a change. You can assume good intent and still name harmful impact. You can collaborate and still hold the line. A helpful phrase is, I know everyone here wants my child to succeed. I'm concerned that the current plan is not helping them feel successful or safe enough to learn. That keeps the focus on the plan, not blame. Here's another phrase. I'd like us to look at the pattern rather than treating each incident as separate. Or, I understand the behavior is challenging. I'm asking us to identify what support is needed before the behavior escalates. Or, I appreciate how much you're managing in the classroom. At the same time, my child is showing us that this approach is not working for them. That is advocacy without apology. You are not saying, I'm sorry, my child has needs. You are saying, my child has needs and we need a plan. Here is a reflection question that I want parents to hold. Does my child experience school as a place where they are helped or as a place where they are constantly failing? That's a hard question because sometimes, from the adult side, a school is offering lots of support. There might be interventions, meetings, charts, emails, reminders, breaks, consequences, plans. But from the child's side, it may still feel like I am always in trouble. I can't do anything right. Everyone is watching me. I miss all of the fun stuff. The adults talk about me. I have to hold it together all day. I am the problem. And that gap matters. Support is not only about what is technically being provided, it is about how the child experiences it. Does the support preserve the child's dignity? Does it reduce shame? Does it help the child rejoin the group? Does it teach skills? Does it strengthen connection? Does it make success more likely next time? If not, the plan may need to change. So, I've got a couple of practical tips for you today. Tip number one, ask belonging focused questions at school meetings. Often, meetings are focusing on deficits. What's not working, what behavior happened, what skill is missing, what goal was not met. And these questions are necessary, but they are not enough. We want to try asking things like, what helps my child feel successful here? When does my child seem most connected? Which adults does my child trust? Where in the day does my child feel most competent? What happens after they have a hard moment? How are they welcomed back into the group after a break or conflict? When do you see my child at their best? What parts of the school day seem to drain the most energy? What supports are already working? All of these questions shift the conversation. They remind the team that the child is not just a collection of problems to manage. They are a whole person whose experience matters. They also give you better information because sometimes the most useful clue is not when the child falls apart. It is when they do not fall apart. What is different about the successful moments, and can we build from there? Practical tip number two, request proactive supports, not just consequences. Consequences happen after the problem. Supports reduce the chance of the problem happening in the first place. Both may have a role, but if a child is repeatedly struggling, a plan that relies mostly on consequences is not enough. Instead of only asking what happens when my child refuses work, ask what support is in place before work refusal begins. Instead of only asking what happens after my child yells, ask how are we helping my child notice frustration earlier? Instead of only asking what happens when my child leaves the room, ask what is happening before they feel they need to escape. Instead of only asking what consequence will they get for unsafe behavior, ask what regulation plan is being used before they reach that level of distress. Proactive supports might look like previewing transitions, offering choices, reducing writing load, breaking tasks into smaller steps, providing movement breaks, using a visual schedule, checking in before difficult parts of the day, creating a calm break plan, teaching help-seeking language, building in sensory supports, adjusting seating, supporting peer interactions, planning for re-entry after a hard moment. The goal is to stop making the child fail first in order to receive support. Support should not only arrive after the explosion. Tip number 3, share a one-page how to support my child profile. This can be incredibly helpful, especially at the beginning of a school year, after a transition, before a field trip, or when a new staff member is involved. Keep it simple and usable. Include things like what my child is great at, what my child loves, what helps my child feel safe, what can be hard for my child, early signs they are getting overwhelmed, what helps when they're feeling overwhelmed, what usually makes things worse, best ways to give directions, best ways to support transitions, helpful language, important sensory needs, how to help after a hard moment. The tone matters. This is not a legal brief, though heaven knows sometimes we wish we could attach a 47-page appendix and a dramatic soundtrack. It is a practical guide that helps adults see your child more accurately. You might write something like, "When my child is overwhelmed, they may sound argumentative. They are usually not trying to be disrespectful. They are often scared, stuck, or overloaded." Calm, brief language helps. Public correction makes things worse. That kind of information can change how an adult interprets behavior, and interpretation changes response. Tip number 4, advocate for sensory, social, and emotional needs alongside academics. Sometimes school plans focus heavily on academic goals while the child's nervous system is basically waving flags in the background. The child may need support for reading and math. Yes, but they may also need support for noise sensitivity, transitions, lunch, recess, peer conflict, group work, unstructured time, assemblies, field trips, bathroom anxiety, perfectionism, emotional regulation, school refusal, masking fatigue, recovery after mistakes. These are not side issues. They affect access to education. If a child is feeling too overwhelmed to enter the building, too anxious to ask for help, too dysregulated after recess to learn math, or too ashamed to try writing, then emotional and sensory needs are directly connected to academic progress. You can say something like, "I want to make sure we're supporting the whole school day, not only the academic tasks." Or, "My child's sensory and emotional needs are affecting their ability to access learning." Or, "Social belonging is part of school functioning for my child. I'd like support around peer interactions and re-entry after hard moments." These things help move the conversation beyond grades and behavior charts. It brings the child's lived experience into the plan. Practical tip number 5, watch for patterns, not isolated incidents. Schools are busy places, and sometimes each incident gets treated separately. A hard Monday, a lunch problem, a recess conflict, a writing refusal, a meltdown during assembly, a nurse visit before math, a stomach ache on library day, a blow up if you have a substitute teacher. Each event might look isolated, but parents often see the pattern first. You might notice every meltdown happens after lunch. Every nurse visit happens before writing. Every school refusal happens on PE days. Every shutdown happens after group work. Every behavior problem happens during unstructured times. Every explosion happens after your child has been masking all morning. Patterns are information. They help us move from blame to planning. Instead of my child is being difficult, the pattern might show this environment is too loud, the transition is too fast and abrupt, this task is too open ended, this social situation is too confusing, this support is arriving way too late, this child is holding it together until they can't. Bring those patterns to meetings. You might say something like, I'm noticing this is happening most often after recess. Can we look at what support is available during and after that transition? Or, the school refusal seems strongest on days with writing demands. Can we look at whether writing is becoming a trigger? Or, my child is losing recess to finish work several times a week. I'm concerned that this is creating a cycle where they miss regulation time and then struggle more later. Patterns help teams solve the right problem. So, as we close, I want to return to the core message. School belonging is not just about placement, grades, or behavior charts. It is about whether support helps a child feel capable or whether school becomes a daily reminder of everything that is hard. It is about whether a child feels respected, understood, and included in the life of the classroom. It is about whether adults see behavior as communication, accommodations as access, and connection as part of learning. And parents, you are allowed to advocate for that. You are allowed to ask clear questions. You are allowed to request proactive support. You are allowed to name patterns that you are noticing. You are allowed to say, this is not working. You are allowed to care about your child's emotional experience, not just their academic performance. That is not being difficult. That is parenting. And when you advocate, you do not need to apologize for your child needing support. You can be respectful, you can be collaborative, you can be open, and you can still be very clear because a child should not have to earn belonging by masking, complying, or holding it together all day. Belonging should be part of the support plan. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I will see you soon.